Hello, welcome to Uncle Al's Barbecue. Today, I'm going to be trimming up this brisket. So, this brisket has been washed down with cold water and blotted with a paper towel. Now, this particular brisket right here, I got a little story for you. If you want to look at this edge here, some of the fat, I got it up for a reason. A little fat in here and everything. It's kind of got a cavity in here. Okay, normally if I've seen that in the brisket, I wouldn't buy it. But this weekend we had a problem. There was only 2 briskets left. Only 2, right? And I talked to the butcher where I went back there to see if he could reserve one for me. And he said he had none in the back. And he didn't know if the truck was coming in or not. So, as they say, don't risk it on the brisket. I only had 2 briskets there to choose from, and this is the one I got. Normally, if there's like 20 of them around there, maybe 30 on some days, and they're frozen. This one wasn't frozen, it was already defrosted. I wouldn't pick this one. I'd look for one that would be more symmetrical, but hey man, you got to deal with what you got to deal with, and I'm thankful that I have a brisket today. So let's get to the trim. The first thing you want to do is find these hard pieces of fat and just cut them right on off and get rid of them. Okay, find that hard fat. You don't want to eat that. You do not want to eat the hard fat. So cut that off. You want to leave fat on here. Don't get me wrong. But you do not want to eat a hard fat. Okay? You want it to be the soft fat. And you might go through a couple of different knives. I'm just going to try and do it with one big knife. And you want to try and get it uniform. Like all this right here, I'm just going to come on down and try and cut this off and go straight across the top. See, there's a little of this silver skirt. You don't want that on there. You got to get that off. So this is the most tedious part of cooking a brisket, in my opinion. And this may be the most important part of cooking a brisket, because this is what's going to set up how the brisket lays down on your smoker. You want it uniform, and they say you want it aerodynamic. See, aero. So you do want to leave some fat, but you don't want that silver on there. So sometimes you just got to cut through it to get that off. Now you see that? That's what you want right there. See that? That's silver. See that silver? That's what you don't want. So you're going to have to cut some of that out. Okay, now there's a little fat cap thing and hard fat piece in here. You know, like I said, this brisket's a little different than the ones I normally get. But hey man, I got a brisket, so I'm happy. That's all that counts. Now a lot of this trimmings, you can keep these trimmings. My dog loves this, so I'll grill that up or whatever. Or you can boil some of this down and you can make a beef stock. A beef stock, if you ever wanted to do that. And then you can refrigerate it or keep it in the freezer for other recipes that require a beef stock. Okay, so trimming that up, this silvers, you got to get that silver out of there. And it is imperative that you use a sharp knife. And I got lucky today. I got a brand new knife here. And this wasn't really expensive for these knives. It was like 20 bucks. Richardson Sheffield. Professional. Woo! And you got to live up to professional. I know you may not be able to see some of this backside, but I'm just trying to go through this trim. I think you can see what I'm pulling up. And there you go. You just got to get some of that off of there. Okay, it's still a hard piece. See if you guys can see all that right there. There's a hard piece right there. You know, you just got to get it out. You got to get that hard piece out of there. See that? Did you hear it? Okay. You just got to get that out of there. There's a little hard piece in here. And this is where you get to, yep. You get to feel it. Like this right here is perfect in here. Okay, does it have an edge? Little skirt steak. Got to cut that off. And basically you're just going to keep on going around it, around your brisket, and slowly trimming pieces as you go along. And as you go along, the brisket changes. Okay, so you can say you're going to start at the top or the bottom and work your way in and work your way out. But the brisket's going to change as you cut with the fat, and things are going to keep changing. So you just kind of got to go along with it. All right. So I'm not making this one pretty. Okay, I just want this one to taste good. My sister and brother-in-law are coming over, and this brisket is going to be for tomorrow. And they went down to Mr. Franklin's barbecue in Austin. Hope you can see this. Yep, and they picked me up his rub. So I got a challenge on my hand. I said, okay, good. I'm going to make me a brisket. And I'll see how close can I get to mimicking him. All right, so we got this edge here that I was showing you earlier. Now, normally there'll be a different cavity right in here. And I call it the cave. Well, in these cavities, you got to feel around and see if there's that hard piece of fat in there. You got to get that out. You've got to get that out. So, once again, you're just going to kind of trim things down. As you keep trimming, it's like peeling layers back. See, that looks really good right there. So, got to get this fat out. See that? You do not want that in, that right there. You do not want that in there. Okay, you do not want that in there. If you don't trim this out, you just kind of ruin your point. Right there. That's the piece to get out. You gotta get that out. I ain't even gonna give that to the dog. Alright. Alright, now we'll trim that down. Alright, so we got still a piece of that hard piece is in here. So you just kind of poke in there and look in there and see where you're at. And then just work your way down. Work your way down to the bottom of it, get underneath it, and then you come back across, and then you peel it back and follow up. See? Follow it up. Follow it up. Follow it up. Cut it around. Bring it out. Bring it out. Right there. Alright. So, got to clean some of this up. Now, this side of the brisket is really important to get it uniform and flat and get all that nasty fat off of here. Okay? On this side. Because on the cap side, when I get over there in a minute, that's where the fat's going to render into this meat. That's where it's going to render in. So, anytime I see some fat like this, you can feel the texture of it. Okay, and that's why I don't wear gloves. I know a lot of you might be freaking out. Well, he ain't wearing gloves. Well, you cannot feel the texture of the meat wearing gloves. Okay? I can. So, there's still that hard piece right there. So I got to go in. That's what I was just telling you. I poked it and I got to feel it. And you got to get that piece out. You just got to. You got to get that piece out of there. All right. And that might do it right there. Okay. That's some ugly fat there, so I'm going to turn the tray towards me now. I need to finish this up so I can see. Okay, so I tried to trim it towards you. If you notice, this whole time I'm using this big knife. And so far, so good. So far, so good. Man, that piece is in there. Yep. Well, Like I said, I normally wouldn't buy a brisket like this. But sometimes, when you get a brisket that you're kind of, I guess you could say, not satisfied with, because normally you would want a different one. See, that's still some hard texture in that. Now you can boil this stuff down and make tallow too. I myself don't use tallow. I think it's a crutch. I don't think anyone should use it. You do what you want, it's your food, and if you like it and it helps your cookout, then most certainly use it. This is just one other recipe out of probably 10,000 different recipes of brisket. Now, alright, well, what I'm feeling in here is soft fat. So, got a little skirt right there. Need to peel that off. Alright. Now, sometimes this brisket trimming is going to take a little while. See that skirt? You got to get that out of there. You know, it's going to take a little while. But this is the worst part of the cook. Right here, if there is a worst part. Alright, so since I got that piece out, I'm looking down here. You still want some fat. You do. Just don't want that hard piece that's in there. You gotta get that hard piece out. Alright. Boy, this one ended up being like a treasure chest underneath here of fat. It was hidden. See, I didn't get to the fat until I started cutting in here. That's why I was saying how your layers will change. As you trim the brisket, you'll start getting down into it. And that piece is what you don't want. Alright. Let's see here. You just do not want tough fat. You just don't. You want fluffy, white, soft fat. So, all right, let me see here. A little bit more skirt to peel off. A little more skirt. Peel off. Yeah. And there we go with that. All right. As I can see right here on this underside, I'm pretty much about done with it. Okay. I got out that piece I didn't like. And it's the hard fat that's got to get out of there. And sometimes, folks, it's just like that. You know, some briskets you get, and they are just perfectly, I mean, they're almost perfect from the factory. And you just got to do a slight trim on them. Right? And then some of them you get, like this one, kind of got to do surgery to it. So that's a bummer. See that? Got to get that piece out. So that means I got to cut this whole edge. Right there. Got to get that piece out. Okay. So there's a hard piece. Just anytime the fat feels hard, you'll be able to feel it. Once again, that's why I don't wear gloves. You can feel the texture of it. So there's no use in having it. If it's soft and fluffy kind, that's fine. Alright? No use in having any hard fat. So, okay, so what I'm going to do now is this edge isn't anything but fat right here. I'm going to just go ahead and cut this edge and get rid of that edge right there. Just cut that edge right off. Okay, and once again, I'm doing this brisket kind of at a room temperature because they didn't have any frozen, so it does make the trim more difficult. Anybody watching this, even if you're a high roller in the barbecue world, you know, like right now, it's like, man, if I had the room in the freezer, I would have refroze it just to get the texture right. Okay, so you guys know what's going on, but hey, I'm here to help out people that don't know what's going on, or maybe somebody that does know what's going on and they just want a different perspective. So I think I'm going to be satisfied with this little trim I did right here on the underside, and all I got to do now is just square it up, get it uniform, and I'm good to go. Now this side right here, excuse me one second. Wash my hands again. Alright, always keep your hands clean. There's this other side on this brisket right here that has some gray. You see that? You don't want that either. So you see these edge? Okay, you don't want any of that. So you just grab your knife. Just grab your knife and just go straight on down the edge. And just cut that edge off. Alright, I know it's like you lost one slice of brisket, but you don't want that gray dry meat. The dog will like that. And come straight on down here and follow that edge. Alright. Just follow that edge. Alright. Now, this side of the brisket is pretty much done. Alright. I mean, if you're going to get in here and do it, just keep doing it. You know, I mean, do you want it to be good? You want it to taste good? You know, you want awesome brisket, you got to put your time in on it. And you got to get the trimming. You know, it just never seems to end, but you got to get it trimmed up right. So I think this side is good. And now we're on the fat cap side, and you can see how loose this is. That's because it's at room temperature. So what I'm doing right now is more difficult than you think it is. Alright? Because the fat is moving around. The fat is moving around. So I got to sit here and fight that. So I just grab it and try and pull it if I can. Just pull it and just get that top fat piece off. Okay. And we're just going to make an incision and just try and go down the top. Right across. And you want to keep your fat as much as you can. This is where your flavor's at. So, be careful to pull the blade towards you. Always be careful with that. But this is kind of how I can get a better angle. See, I don't want to get down into that meat. Okay? But I do want to get some of this very top layer off. The very, very thin top layer off. So, I'm cutting it off the best I can. And it's just moving around. Yep. And this is why they say to trim it when it's cold. Not frozen, but cold. Right here. Right here. This is a difficult trim. This, matter of fact, this is probably the worst trim I've ever done. Dealing with the brisket. I couldn't get any room in the freezer. And they didn't have any left. I couldn't get them to reserve me one. So now I'm dealing with a texture problem. So, I got to keep the fat. It doesn't look that bad. I really don't. It's kind of thin. I did clean it. Clean off some edge. There's some hard fat here. On this corner you can't see. I mean, you can sit there and trim on a brisket for a day. Take longer to trim it than it would to cook it. But there's certain areas you just got to clean it up. So that's what you got to do. All right, that was a hard piece. There's a little hard piece here. Do not want hard fat. Okay, right under there, that's still a little hard. Right there. Okay, that's what I was talking about earlier. That's not so bad. So I'm just trying to come straight across and get that out. And get off this hard piece here. I can get underneath it. And yep. Yeah, this has just been figures because I'm trying to trim it and show you what's going on here. This is probably, if this has got to be the worst trim I've dealt with because of the texture of the fat. So Uncle Al's don't give up. He just shows you how it works. Some days it's like that. Some days it's just like that. It's like every other day. You'll wake up and start out in a good mood, be happy, and be like, all right, I got me a brisket to cook today. And I'm off. It's a nice 3-day weekend. Thank you to all the veterans out there. Thank you very much. And the police too, I support you. I really should have a police day. So, that knife's too big. I'm going to get me a little knife here. See if I can get underneath this. Alright. Yeah, I'm fine tuning this side because I got to keep this fat. Okay, now, that fat, that's about the best I'm going to do with that. And you've seen the trim. I mean, that's pretty much it. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Just the way it goes. So see, you start pulling all your fat off, then you're going to start losing your flavor. Okay, so that's the way that is. This is, once again, not a brisket I would normally buy, but I had no choice. That's the way it is. So, let's see here. It's not too bad. Okay. All right. So let's get one more hand wash going on and dry your hands. Keep your hands clean. And all right, here we go. It's seasoning time. Mr. Franklin. Just gonna coat it straight on across. And you don't need to super coat it. You don't have to super coat a brisket either. And this top cap right here will be on the bottom when I cook it. It's not open. No, this is a new one. Very, very light on the garlic. I mean, very light. I mean, barely light. I meant barely light. Okay. My head country. I'm going to put on the very top. Then we're going to try this one. And this one isn't open either. Alright. And I'm just going to very, very lightly, also with this, just dust it across. And if you notice on this brisket, I did not use a binder at all. Okay? A lot of people will bind it with mustard. Or you can use vegetable oil. Or olive oil is what I would use sometimes. Today, no binder. No binder. All right, there's this head country. We're just going to come straight on across here. Now, this is your fat side. So, this side right here, you can put a little bit heavier coat than on the bottom side. This is the side when you pull it up, show off, and say, look at that bark. Look what I did. All right, that's done there. So we're going to flip this thing over. All right. And you notice I didn't pat it in there because I didn't have to pat it in there. The reason for that, no pat, is because the brisket is basically almost to a room temperature. So you don't really have to pat. Actually, as you've seen me do it, it's already been sweating. That's why there was a difficulty in the trim. So now this is going to sweat in there, and this is the meat side. And once again on the garlic, I just do very, very light on the garlic. Just kind of like, was there something else in there? That's how light on the garlic, and a little bit on here. And a lot of these seasons during the wrap, they'll get in there anyway. Okay, so, and we'll finish off the head country, going straight on across, just straight on across like a little bitty head country storm. And you can't see it on this side over here, but I got the edges, and that's basically, that's it for this trim and on this brisket. She is trimmed up and she is seasoned. You've seen the battle I went through. Look at all that fat and stuff I got out of there. Okay? And you could have got more, but I think it's good enough for what we're doing. It's a family eating. We're going to have 7 people over here tomorrow. And I'm all about the flavor. I'm going to cook it low and slow at about 200. The woods I'm going to use, I'm going to start with hickory. I'm going to go to pecan. And then I'm going to finish off with some oak. And I'm going to do it in stages like that. So, I hope you've seen this video and watched the whole thing. If you want to see why a lot of people do not cook a brisket, there's a little edge here. I'll touch that up right before I put it on the smoker. That's why, because it's a lot of work to do this, and sometimes you buy them and spend $70, and it's not quite the one that you want. It's not the one you prefer, but I tell you what, it's a brisket, and I got one, and thank you God for that. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you for barbecuing with me today. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I mean, if I showed you how to do it and you learned something, go ahead and do it, and leave a comment, if anything. It doesn't matter, bad or good, I'll answer you. All right? No profanity, please.